This podcast is sponsored by the Tollington Arms on Hornsey Road, a bubbly pub with a Thai kitchen home to thousands of Arsenal fans every season. Open daily from noon.
Hi and welcome to a transfer special of the Gooner Ramble podcast. It's not Giles in the hot seat today, he's looking after his kids or something silly like that. It is me, it's Akhil, and I've got a special guest, and he goes by the name of Sami Mokbel. Hey Sami.
Akhil, how are you?
Yeah, very good. I think most Arsenal fans I read something on Facebook today where someone wakes up, they open up Twitter, they search Malcom, Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, and then they refresh and then they just close it again and then do it again every half an hour. That's what this week has been like, hasn't it?
That's the January transfer window, isn't it? I think support is, it's not just Arsenal fans. I think support is every club, hoping and praying for new signings, and I think that's just the way of the world, isn't it? I think we want new players in, but obviously particularly with Arsenal at the moment, with Sanchez about to be on his bike, and rumours about possibly Ozil going and Wilshere going to sign a new contract.
Yeah.
I think there's a bigger desire than ever from supporters to get some new faces through the building.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of go through them one by one, I guess. I mean, you were obviously at the Arsenal Wenger press conference, which would be yesterday, as people listen to this. I mean, generally, before we go through them case by case, how was Arsene Wenger? What was his mood like? I mean, considering we haven't been playing very well, and results haven't really been going for us either. So, was there much talk about sort of the actual on the pitch stuff, or was it all dominated by off the field stuff? And actually, Palace on Saturday was hardly mentioned.
I don't think I actually heard the word Crystal Palace at the press conference this morning, to be fair. No, listen, actually, as you can imagine, he was dominated by the transfers. It sets the news agenda at the moment, particularly say in January. I think all that, a lot of the pages are filled by transfer speculation, transfer news, and today's press conference was no different. There's so much going on at the club at the moment. Obviously, there's an obvious exit, an obvious departure in Alexis Sanchez, and then the potential 2 high-profile incoming, maybe even 3, with Malcom, Aubameyang, and obviously Henrik Mkhitaryan. So it was a bit. Go on.
I was going to say, let's go through them then one by one. You've mentioned Sanchez a few times, so you're itching to talk and tell us about it. So, I mean, where are we with this Alexis Sanchez thing? I mean, on Sunday, obviously, he didn't go to Bournemouth. Arsene Wenger at the end of in his interview and press conferences after the game, he made it pretty clear that Sanchez is now in or out, and potentially it was best to leave him out. And when that happens, something's quite close. I mean, it's kind of gone on. Arsene Wenger did say that in the next 48 hours something will happen either way. We're still kind of waiting. Where are we on that one?
I think if we stretch it back to Sunday at the Bournemouth game, I think that was obviously that was the beginning of the end. He didn't travel to the game, and invariably, unless there's an absolutely massive U-turn and turnaround that we just don't foresee at the moment, that was the beginning of the end. I don't think he's part of the first team setup at the moment. I understand that he's been training with the development squad over the past few days, which means that obviously at the moment I think that makes sense. He's not gonna feature in the first team, so why should he? Well, he hasn't got a chance of featuring in the first team at the moment. So, why should he be training with the senior squad? So I think it all points in the direction of Sanchez going. Whether United can get the deal done before the deadline tomorrow, I think that it's a midday deadline, isn't it, for them to be registered in time for the weekend games. I can't see that happening, but I certainly see it getting done within the next 24 to 48 hours. Arsene Wenger said as much this morning. He said it was, quote unquote, he said it was likely that the deal will go through, and I've not heard anything since to make me disbelieve what Arsene Wenger was saying this morning. I think that, that deal will go over the line, probably by the end of the weekend, and Alexis Sanchez will become a Man United player.
Yeah, I bet Burnley love that, considering the last time Alexis was there, he scored a penalty in the last second of the game. But yeah, I mean, it's having that training, I think, with the development squad, youth squad, whatever you want to call it, old-fashioned term was just the reserves, wasn't it? I wonder
kids, isn't it?
I wonder if that's more about his relationship with a lot of players is just completely broken down. I know James Oddie wrote a piece this week about how a lot of the Arsenal first team squad just wanted it resolved. He didn't go as far as saying everyone hates him or anything like that, but he did hint there's a divide there, and he said that they just want a resolution. I mean, is there much, do you get that sense with Sanchez that actually his relationship now has broken down a little bit with the players, and even if this deal falls through, it kind of seems like there's no going back. As someone looking kind of in from out, I suppose we all are, but someone as a fan, it just seems like even if this falls through, he needs to go somewhere, because this ain't going to work for him now.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing issue, Akhil, for sort of approaching it. I think probably approaching 12 months now. I think he's been pretty clear that he wasn't going to sign a new contract. His time at Arsenal was coming to an end. He was either going to get sold last summer, which he nearly was, obviously, to Manchester City on the final day of the transfer window, or see out his final, see out his contract and go on a free transfer. So he certainly proved a decisive figure amongst the squad. And I know a lot of people didn't want to read too much into that Crystal Palace game where he scored twice, and no one, only half of the team celebrated with him. But I thought that was indicative of how members of the squad feel about him. A lot of the squad, senior members of the squad, want him gone, and they have wanted him gone for a number of months now, because for various reasons. One being that they feel that he's not putting the effort in training. He moans a lot in training, and also he gets Arsene Wenger lets him get away with trying to think of the right word. He lets him get not away with murder, but he doesn't always have great discipline on the training pitch, and some players kind of resent that. And so I think there's issues there. And also I think in games we've seen in games that Alexis Sanchez, he's a fantastic player, and on his day, he's one of the greatest players that the Premier League has ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah.
But and I think, Akhil, you go up and down the country watching him. He does have a tendency to give the ball away, Akhil. And I think if you look at the stats, if you look at the stats, I think he's for a player of his quality, the number of times that he loses possession, and I think that also frustrates Arsenal players, because perhaps he may take the difficult option on when there's an easier pass on, and an option where he can keep the ball moving and keep the move flowing. I think that frustrates players as well. So I think, as you say, and as James has written over the past few days, I think there's a willingness, certainly from members of the squad, for Sanchez to go this month.
Yeah, I mean that Palace thing. I mean, it was actually a bit weird, because it was actually me that tweeted it, and me that tweeted a video which showed Koscielny completely on the other side, and then obviously I'm not saying Sky picked up my video or anything like that, but obviously someone at Sky's noticed it and given it, told Thierry in his ear kind of thing, and then Thierry's brought it up. We know how that kind of stuff works, but there was the reason why I kind of tweeted it was because I'd seen it so much. A few weeks before we had gone to Southampton, and Wilshere had a little go at him on the pitch, and there was signs that Ramsey and him didn't quite get on, and it's something I could see, and I could see it every week. But I think if you just potentially, if you don't if you're not lucky enough to watch Arsenal live, you often miss that because cameras obviously cut to the player and the couple around him. Then they show the replay, and you don't often see everything. You know, certainly wouldn't see your centre back in the sort of in his own half because Sky wouldn't show that. There's no value in it. You know, that's not where the camera is. So it's something I've noticed for a while now, and I personally think it's just his relationship is completely broken down with a lot of players, and it's, you know, he has to go now. I mean, I'll just ask you something that when kind of even today, you know, Arsene Wenger talked about Sanchez being very professional and committed and all that sort of stuff. Do you guys in the room just think, you know, I'm not quite sure I believe Arsene here, but, you know, whatever you want to say about Arsene Wenger, he's always been a bit of a gentleman in terms of with his players. He's never really publicly gone on them or anything. Maybe recently with a few ex-pros who have obviously said stuff about him, I guess. But, like, are you surprised, and do the room believe Arsene when he says all that stuff about Sanchez?
I think listen, I think the guys who follow the club on a regular basis kind of know the workings, or at least we like to think we know the inner workings of the dressing room, and who, you know, who gets on with who, and, you know, it's kind of our job to try and find that kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
But listen, on the face of it, you know, you can't criticise Arsene Wenger for doing it. You know, he's refusing to throw. Even though this player is about to leave the club, he's refusing to throw him under the bus, and I think that just underlines the kind of guy Arsene Wenger is, and the gentleman he is, really. Because, you know, if there was ever a player that Arsene Wenger was entitled to throw under the bus, it was probably Alexis Sanchez. He's held the club to ransom for the past sort of 12 months over his new contract, demanding all sorts of ridiculous pay rises that he just knew Arsenal would never be able to meet. You know, his effort in games, his effort in training has dwindled sort of, you know, worryingly over the past few months, and yet Wenger, you know, at least publicly stands by him, and, you know, we're sitting in the press conference, and, you know, we understand why the manager's saying those things. We understand why he's refusing to criticise Sanchez, but in reality, we know that, you know, the relationship between player and the rest of the squad is at an all-time low, and I think that will eventually lead to, it will lead to him going to Man United. Yeah,
I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, if you had to give it a percentage, what would you give this? What percent would you give this deal? Is it pretty close to 100 now?
99%.
Yeah.
99% done. And, you know, you could never, unless they're holding the scarf and the jersey up, and then you're never quite sure. But happen, anything can happen. But I think, you know, but the thing is, it wouldn't be of benefit to Arsenal Football Club if this deal was to collapse now, because it's gone too far. Sanchez obviously doesn't want to be there. You know, as we've alluded to, the players want to see the back of him. I'm sure the manager wants to see the back of him now, and, you know, focus on the future. So I think it's best for all the parties involved that you know, his time at Arsenal draw a line under that, and you know, that he can get on with his career, and Arsenal can get on with trying to get into the top four.
Yeah. Okay, I know you've written stories for obviously your newspaper. There've been kind of joint stories with the Northern correspondent, I guess. From the Mkhitaryan point of view and camp, has there been much of a delay in Mkhitaryan? And what I mean by delay is, was he not as sure about the move, or is it his agent playing silly buggers in terms of trying to get the most for his client, which is kind of understandable, you know. But, you know, it seems like there has been a slight delay from the Mkhitaryan point of view, and is that because he's not sure about Arsenal, and you know, in your heart of hearts, you think Man United second, Champions League coming up, Arsenal sixth, Europa? I mean, there is a decision to be made there, because he is, at least for the next 5 months, going to be dropping down a level slightly, isn't he?
Yeah. No, I understand that argument, but my understanding of my reading of the situation is that Henrik Mkhitaryan is up for Arsenal. He fancies coming to to the Emirates.
That's positive.
I think living in London, not that, Manchester's a great place to live in, and, it's a great city, but I think coming down to London will be a major pull for him. I think what's happening at the moment is just posturing from Mino Raiola. I think, Mino Raiola is trying to eke out as much money as he can out of this deal for himself, obviously, and for his client.
Yeah.
And, he'll get a lot of bad press for that, but he's more than entitled to do that. And who cares? Exactly. And he's more than entitled to do that. And I would beg anyone to put themselves in Mino Raio's position and tell me that they wouldn't do the same thing.
I mean, funny enough, we did a pod the other day, and we were talking about Theo Walcott, and that one criticism some fans have, I personally don't, is that when Van Persie left, Theo kind of slightly held the club to ransom and got a big pay rise, but then who wouldn't do that? Which, I mean, you in your profession, me in my profession, if a colleague left and we knew that, hang on here, we could take on more work, but we want to be paid a bit more, and we know that our company can afford it, we would all do it. And if we had an agent, we would expect our agent to get the best deal. So, yeah, I'm kind of comfortable with that. I think we have to accept the way football's gone now. But yeah, okay, moving on. His old mate at Dortmund, the front man, Aubameyang, just forgot his name there for a second.
Yeah.
What do we think is happening there? Because it was, a few weeks ago, I think Arsene Wenger completely denied it, didn't he? And said we're not on the case or whatever. And it then suddenly in the last week or so, it's just, people said there's no smoke without fire kind of thing. So what's going on there?
So what we need to address first of all is obviously with the Mkhitaryan deal as well, is the influence that the new head of recruitment, Sven has had on both those deals. Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan are players that Sven Mislintat both knows from both from his time at Borussia Dortmund. He helped discover both of those two guys who've gone on to become sort of some of the two most high profile players in Europe. So he knows all about them. So we shouldn't underestimate the influence that he's had on those two potential deals at the club. I think you mentioned there Wenger in the press conference a few weeks ago where he denied it. I think I might get hammered for this, but I think whenever we ask Arsene Wenger transfer questions in the press conference, we kind of go with the opposite that how he answers basically. So if he says they aren't interested, then it probably means that they are. Listen, it's obviously a deal that they've known about and they've been working on for a couple of weeks, and I think only this week that how advanced the deal has come to fruition. I have to be honest.
He's not in the squad either. He's not in the squad, is he? It's been
they've got a game tomorrow. Well, they've got a game on Friday night against Berlin, and he's been omitted from the match day squad from that because he's for the reasons that the Borussia Dortmund are claiming is that he's not 100% focused on the game, which they don't in as many words mention Arsenal, but I think that would allude to the fact that Aubameyang might have his head and eyes elsewhere, i.e. the Emirates Stadium. So I think we can expect that deal to gather pace over the weekend. Yeah. The fact he's not in the squad for this game against Hertha Berlin,
that's a big thing.
Speaks volumes.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I think with Sanchez going, and if those two do come in, then I think it makes us stronger, doesn't it? It does. It makes us.
I think so.
It's, in terms of just forget about maybe ability for a second, but you've got an unhappy player who hasn't really done much this season going, and you've got two fresh players who, Mkhitaryan has a point to prove, for sure, and then probably so does Aubameyang as well. So, it's a weird one for Arsenal fans because we're obviously upset that we're selling our best or second best player to United, but actually, if we do pull these two off, we've done all right there.
I think so. I think what the interesting thing with both of those deals is their age. Arsenal are a club who, traditionally, particularly in recent history, have signed players in their early to mid 20s, players that have got a sell-on value, a resale value.
Yeah.
if they do, decide to go and move on in the future. Or these guys are going to be offered a sort of, 3.5-year, 4-year contracts. They come up to, they're both sort of, I think, is it Mkhitaryan's 28 and Aubameyang's 29?
Yeah.
I think they're obviously at least they're really late 20s. So there isn't going to be a big resale value from both of these signings, which means they're going to have to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
They're not going to have much time to kind of settle in and get to work. They need these two players to come off instantly. And I think, as we found with Alexander Lacazette, I don't think it's that easy to come into the Premier League and as I say, hit the ground running. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys, particularly Aubameyang, who hasn't had any experience of the Premier League, it'll be interesting to see how well they do when they come into the side.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got the third one, who it seemed like we were very close to. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was agents again playing silly buggers and briefing things. But I mean, Malcom, obviously, it's gone a bit quiet recently. But maybe that was because Mkhitaryan was thrown into the deal late. I don't know. But I mean, what do you know about the Malcom deal? Where are we with that?
I think they're certainly interested. I think it was telling last week. Arsene Wenger said in his press conference, or one of his press conferences last week, that Malcom was a very talented player. Whilst he also said they weren't on the case, but he did say he's a very talented player. So he obviously knows about him and he's watched him. So the club are certainly on the case there. I think it's a deal that I think what Arsenal will try to do, or what they are doing, is trying to get the Aubameyang deal and the Mkhitaryan deal over the line first, and then they will focus on the final days and perhaps getting 1 or 2 more bodies over the line, and maybe 1 more out. And that would probably be Olivier Giroud.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next.
The order that will I think that will be the order that happens in.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about Olivier Giroud, actually, because there's been links with Dortmund, obviously, potentially in a bit of a swap, or there's even been talk about a 6-month loan, which potentially could suit all the parties, really. What are we hearing from the Olivier Giroud camp, or are they pretty quiet at the moment? Are they sort of keeping their cards close to their chest, or are they?
I think they're keeping their powder dry for now, just because he's injured at the moment. So I don't think they're in a position to do much talking. But what we can certainly fathom from it, and what we can certainly take a stab at, is there's a World Cup round the corner. We know that Olivier Giroud,
his last one probably.
Yeah, he's an important part of that French squad. France squad, who are expected to sort of do great things in Russia in the summer. For him to be able to go to the World Cup and be part of that squad, he's going to need to be playing with the potential arrival of Aubameyang and with Lacazette already in front of him in the pecking order at Arsenal. His game time is going to certainly be limited between now and the end of the season. So I certainly think a loan deal or any sort of exit really would suit Giroud.
Yeah.
Whether it would suit the club, whether it would suit Arsene Wenger, I'm not sure, because I actually think, despite the fact he's not playing him regularly, I think Arsene Wenger is a big fan of Olivier Giroud, and Olivier Giroud does invariably come off the bench and score his fair share of goals. But the fact that Arsenal spent so much money on Lacazette in the summer, I think it was £53 million.
Yeah.
The fact that they spent that much and that level of money means that, Arsene Wenger has to persist with Alexander Lacazette, and rightly so. And I think that means the odd man out is going to be, sadly, Olivier Giroud.
Yeah. Just one more name to throw out there, Johnny Evans. We've been kind of linked for about a year and a half, along with Man City. There was probably a bit more noise on the first week of January than there has been in the last week or so, but do you think that's a possibility? Is Johnny Evans just that name we're saying because we know he's available and he's at a team like West Brom, who you would think a big club could come and offer the money and good money, and they would probably accept. But is that why we keep saying Johnny Evans? And actually, it's just is it a bit of a smokescreen for someone else, do you think, or do you think the interest is genuine?
I think the interest is genuine. The interest is certainly genuine, but I may regret I may regret saying this statement, but I just don't see the deal happening. My understanding is, Akhil, is that he, at the moment, he commutes from Manchester into the Midlands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think he doesn't want to uproot his family away from the north of England, which to me makes Arsenal a non-starter.
That's an extra 100 miles or so, isn't it? So
yeah, and I just don't think he's keen on. Understandably, I think if you've got a family, you kind of have to think about them and the impact it'll have on your family. So, but I don't think, from what I understand, is that he's keen on uprooting. So, which leaves, obviously, I think Man United and Man City are both interested. So I think he would ideally want a move to either one of those two clubs.
Yeah. You sort of forget, don't you, that footballers do have lives and do have families and stuff.
And I think that was an issue for Theo. I think that was an issue for Theo.
Yeah.
I think obviously being based down in the south of England for so long, all his roots are here. He hasn't moved away from the south. He lived in London and played for Southampton. So this is where he lives in the south of England. And I think moving to the north and moving away from his family and uprooting his wife and his kids was an issue. But I just think a club and the size of Everton was just too good an opportunity for him to turn down.
Yeah. Okay, let's briefly talk about sort of the contracts. I mean, the good thing is we've had to talk, we've always had three, haven't we, that we've talked about. Last year it was obviously Sanchez, Ozil, Oxlade-Chamberlain. Got rid of Oxlade-Chamberlain, we've got rid of Sanchez. Ozil's still there, but we're adding Wilshere to that now. I mean, in terms of contracts, I mean, I saw something quickly just about half an hour ago on Sky Sports News that it might have been earlier on in the day, but Alan Smith came out and said that his sources have kind of told him Ozil was quite close to signing a deal. And there has been, with Ozil, I mean, this is from sort of when I go to games and when I talk to people and stuff, there are two types of fans of Mesut Ozil in terms of what they think about Mesut Ozil, in terms of what's happening. There's the one who think, well, you know what, he hasn't been a Sanchez. He's been positive about the club and he's kind of, they genuinely believe he's close to signing and will stay. Then there's the other camp who just thinks he's got a really good PR team. And, we know that Ozil's got a bit of a team around him and he put out that big statement a couple of months ago and things like that. And those people are a bit more skeptical, really. They just think that actually Sanchez has just been honest and said and told Arsenal what he thinks and what he wants to do. Whereas with Ozil, maybe he hasn't. I mean, are any of them right, or is there a balance in there? And then obviously ultimately, what do you think will happen with Mesut Ozil?
It's a really tough one to call.
I agree.
Like Alan Smith, I've heard the sort of the rumours that he's close to signing a new contract. I thought it was just falling short of writing it, even though Arsene Wenger said last week that he was more optimistic than he was at this point last year that Mesut Ozil will sign, which I think provided some hope to some supporters. But in my opinion, Mesut Ozil would be silly to sign a contract with Arsenal right now. He'll have so many options going into the summer. I'm sure, perhaps not at the same. It'll come down to finances at the end of the day. If this is going to be his last major contract, so if he can eke a few more pence, elsewhere, then, he may be tempted. But I think Arsenal have made him a very good offer. I think it's approaching £300,000 a week, probably just a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
So it's very, very good money. Does he get that elsewhere? I'm not sure he does. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I don't share the same sort of optimism as many others do with Mesut. I think we may still be in for a bit of a twist with that one.
Do you think there are teams in there for him? Are teams now starting to, obviously he can talk to teams abroad. Do you think there's much happening there in the background, or are clubs just kind of waiting?
Surprisingely, there's not been a lot of talk. I think we know there's there's clubs in Turkey that would take him. I think Besiktas and Fenerbahce have both shown an interest. I think Inter Milan have shown an interest in the past, but would they be able to match the kind of money that Arsenal are offering to pay him? I'm not sure they can. So, on that sense, I think there's, Arsenal have got a good chance, but, it may even depend on Mesut Ozil going to the World Cup. He may decide, right, I can go to the World Cup as a free agent, and if I impress at the World Cup, I'll be able to put, a few more pounds on the end of that contract, and I'll go elsewhere. So I think there's still a lot of sort of twists and turns to take with regards to Mesut Ozil and his contract situation.
I personally just think, he's waiting to see what we do this January, part 1, and then where we finish part 2. I think if we were to sign the two ex-Dortmund players, and then potentially add a bit more in the summer, and we win the Europa League or something like that, then potentially it looks a lot more attractive, doesn't it? So I think it
definitely does. And I think now with Sanchez going to United, I'm just not sure that, because United was certainly an option for Ozil, but I think, having switched their attention to Sanchez, are they going to go will they go for another attacking midfielder in the summer? They might do. Yeah. They might do, because I know they're different types of player, and he'll be a free transfer, but I'm not sure how Jose Mourinho fits all those guys in, if I'm honest.
I mean, you said earlier it's your job to kind of find out what sort of internal relationships are like between players and things like that. Do you have any inkling on the relationship between Sanchez and Ozil? Because that's one we haven't really heard much about. They both probably respect each other on the footballing terms, but do you think Ozil will be happy that Sanchez is going, or will he think that's not great for our ambition, or will he think, actually, this means I'm definitely the undisputed main man here now, and who doesn't like to be the main man? So where do you think relationship-wise they were?
I go back to the Crystal Palace incident, Akhil, and the celebrations. I was interested in that when I watched it back. I can't remember if it was for the first goal or second goal. Mesut Ozil was physically, he was strained in his face as to what he should do, whether he should go. But he kind of went halfway towards celebrating.
For the first
took a look behind him and saw those guys who weren't celebrating, and he just stood there for like a couple of seconds to himself, thinking, "Well, what should I do here?" So to me, that suggests that his relationship with Sanchez isn't a bad one. I think they probably get on.
Yeah.
But I think he kind of sided with the guys that didn't want to celebrate with him that day. So listen, the most important thing the most important thing has been for Arsenal for over the past 2 or 3 seasons that those guys have given their all for the club, and I think perhaps the biggest regret that Arsene Wenger will have once Sanchez goes, or maybe even if Ozil goes in the summer, is that he couldn't get those guys, particularly Ozil, firing on all cylinders consistently enough. But if they did, and if they played well together enough, then we wouldn't have had a season like we did last season in the Premier League, whereby you're missing out on a top 4 position. And when you're a club the size of Arsenal, with the players that Arsenal have at disposal, when you're not making the top 4, then, it has to be a massive regret.
Okay, well, hopefully someone a little bit more keen and keen to sign and more promising is obviously Jack Wilshere, who's now again starting to play football that we wanted. He's starting to play at the level we wanted him to get to again, and in the last few games he certainly led from the front. He was captain for one of them, and he's been our best player, I think, in the last few games. Jack Wilshere's contract, where are we there? I mean, the signs seem quite positive.
I think so. I think it's positive in the fact that he wants to stay. He said publicly that he's desperate to stay, and the inquiries I've made sort of privately have also suggested to me that he's absolutely desperate to stay. He does not, unequivocally, and I will hang my hat on this, he does not want to leave the football club.
Yeah.
But
he said just as much, hasn't he? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's what I mean. So privately, I'm getting
the
those
same
vibes.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously publicly, I'm getting we getting that information directly from Jack himself.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, it's a big but. I think the deal that he's been offered is one on reduced terms, certainly in terms of his basic wage.
Yeah.
Which I think is disappointing. I understand why Arsenal have done it, and I think it's obviously attached to his injury record and his injury problems of the past. But in a week, and we're in a period where you're about to lose your best player to a direct rival, and obviously I'm talking about Sanchez and Man United.
Yeah.
Why would you not pull out all the stops to keep and to cement the future of one of your own, isn't he?
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
Come through the academy. He's one of the bright sparks of an otherwise kind of mediocre season. Why would you even risk upsetting him? Why would you risk rocking the boat in terms of his contract by offering him a reduced deal? And I think this is where Arsenal sort of let themselves down sometimes in terms of their contract negotiations. I seem to not want to loosen the purse strings. They seem happy to do it to get players in through the door. They're happy to pay new signings top whack, but when it comes to trying to keep their current stars, they seem a lot more reluctant to do that. I think we've had a number of players throughout the course of history that have had contract disputes. I think the ones off the top of my head, it was Van Persie one season, it was Sami Nasri the season after.
Yeah.
The list is endless. We had the Theo saga, didn't we, 2 or 3 seasons ago? And there just seems a reluctance from within the football club to reward those who are on the current staff. And I think that's a shame, really, because Jack has been one of the bright sparks of the season. So why would you want to rock the boat so much, whereby you'd offer him a bit of offer him a pay cut, and just hope that his desire to stay and his loyalty to the club will seal that deal. And I think Jack now should be well within his rights to say, well, hang on a minute, let me perhaps survey what other options I've got, because at the end of the day, football's a short career, and I know as much as Jack Wilshere wants to stay with Arsenal, he's got a young family, he's got another baby on the way, so that's another mouth to feed. And I know that it's silly that we say that about footballers, but they have their commitments and they need to earn as much as they can. And I think that the fact that he hasn't been offered perhaps a deal that he wants is a worrying sign.
Okay, well, let's hope that one gets sorted. I mean, final question now from me, and maybe we'll have a quick prediction at the end, but there's been a lot of talk about sort of how influential some of the new sort of backroom sort of staff have been. Sven, I know Raul hasn't technically started working at Arsenal yet, but many think he's involved a little bit and he's starting to now get himself involved. And obviously Ivan Gazidis brought them in, so if Sven is influencing the 2 ex-Dortmund players to come in, I think Ivan probably deserves a bit of credit there for bringing him in. But are we seeing Arsene Wenger's influence decrease slightly with all the others? Because, for years we've been used to Arsene Wenger pretty much deciding who to get, how much to pay him, how much transfer to pay the club. And at the moment it seems like maybe there's other people getting involved there as well. And then I suppose, the other way as well, then is the contractor Jack actually a total club decision and not really an Arsene Wenger decision? Because, it's, I know what you're saying about we kind of pay, potentially pay the new signings more, but then we've tried to keep Sanchez and Ozil by giving them absolute top whack as well. So it's a tricky one there. You just don't know where it's going. But do you feel Arsene Wenger's influence has slightly decreased, and are we seeing kind of, that succession plan now starting to come through?
I think so. I think it's the beginning. I think it's the start at the end.
Beginning.
I don't think he'll go this summer. I'm pretty convinced that he won't go this summer.
Okay.
But it's certainly the beginning of the end. Yes, I think we touched on it before, didn't we? With the moves from Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, I think those two have been heavily influenced by Sven Mislintat.
Yeah.
I'd even hazard a guess to say that he's the guy that's driving those deals.
Yeah.
It's interesting you asked the question actually was in the press conference today, away from the broadcast section. We asked him. I actually asked him, Arsene Wenger, who has the final say now with transfers, and he was adamant. Again, I asked him twice that it was him that had the final say. So at least publicly, he's maintaining that he's the final stop at the club with regards to transfers. If I'm being honest, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a bit of a change.
It's not very Arsene Wenger-like to go for 28-year-old, 29-year-old signings, big money signings. It just doesn't seem his way, and it hasn't been his way since he's been, really been at the club. As we said earlier, he's gone for players in their early 20s, mid 20s, not late 20s, going into their 30s. So I don't see those two as necessarily Arsene Wenger signings, as much as he would probably like to work with them, and he thinks they're good players. In my mind, those two aren't players who have been identified by the manager.
Mkhitaryan one might have sort of happened because it was United's choice to put him in. There was rumours that Arsenal asked for Martial and things like that.
That was right, yeah.
But the other one, Aubameyang, obviously that is the different one, and especially with, I know someone asked Wenger about kind of his attitude and his personal issues that, and he kind of answered it in a way that, Arsene Wenger does, but again, that's someone generally you would think actually would he have touched him now at his age, but also his attitude, and you kind of question that. But I don't know. It's obviously a good thing if there are more people involved, more pairs of eyes, more minds kind of working, hopefully for the same goal sort of thing, not just Arsene Wenger kind of making all the decisions. It's probably a good thing for the club, and hopefully we'll see a positive week or two. I mean, just finally, I'm going to ask you for predictions. How do you think the Arsenal squad will look on February the 1st or 2nd or 3rd or whenever the window closes?
Tough one.
Ins and outs.
Go.
We won't hold it against you.
I think with the Aubameyang in, I think we'll see Mkhitaryan in. I think they'll be the only two, and I think we will see Giroud. So long as they get Aubameyang in, I think we'll see Giroud leave, because I just don't think there's enough room, particularly if Arsenal playing one up top. I don't think there's enough room for a third central striker. So I think he'll go.
Yeah.
And I think Malcom is a potential, but I think
for the summer maybe.
Enough in their place with trying to get Aubameyang through the door.
Yeah, maybe Malcolm's one for the summer. And so I know I said that was the last question. Just one very last one. We've got a few players now within 18 months of the end of their contracts. Aaron Ramsey's one, Nacho Monreal, Danny Welbeck, Petr Cech, even Reece Nelson is one as well. Is there much, are you getting much from the club about how sort of contract negotiations are going? Have you seen a bit of a change? We've obviously brought someone in to work on things like that. Is because obviously that's a concern for us as fans. Aaron Ramsey probably is the one that we're thinking, God, in a few minutes, when we get to the summer, he'll have 1 year left. I mean, potentially this could be Aaron Ramsey's last season. I mean, we were talking about Oxlade-Chamberlain a lot last year, and Mesut and Alexis. We're not talking about Ramsey because we're focused on Alexis and Mesut Ozil, but we sold Chamberlain because we felt we had to. Will we do the same with Ramsey?
No. Listen, those. I think that's a concern. That's a right concern to have. I think going into the summer, negotiations have started with Aaron Ramsey, I'm told, and Danny Welbeck. But my understanding is that from both parties, there's no immediate rush from either to put pen to paper. And again, why would they? They're in quite a strong, they're in a very strong position. They can go into the summer with having 1 year on their contract. There'll certainly be clubs, certainly Ramsey, where there'll be some top 6 clubs looking at Ramsey and thinking, well, he'll be worth a punt. He's 26, he's 27. I think he's coming into the prime of his career. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we go for someone like that? I think that will be a concern, and that is a concern for Arsenal going into the summer. I think that, as you say, the new contract negotiator Huss Fami's got
that's the guy.
A lot of work to do. Obviously, I think he's trying to get Jack Wilshere done and Mesut Ozil done. They're obviously the priorities, but I think Ramsey and Danny Welbeck aren't too far behind them guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sammy. You've cheered me right up today, mate. I'm
no problem,
bloody
mate.
glad I called you.
Hopefully get all the players through the door that you want.
Yeah, well, let's see. I think it's going to be a busy few days, but let's see what happens. Sammy, I'd like to thank you for giving up your time. I know I said 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We've gone on a bit longer, but, there's just so much happening.
Absolutely. No, it's fine. It's a pleasure, Akhil. Thanks for the chat.
And you can find Sammy on Twitter at Sami Mokbel 81_DM. So, do follow him, give him a tweet if you agree with him or don't agree with him. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But Sammy, thanks for your time and we'll speak soon.
Cheers, mate.
And that's a wrap. That's the Gooner Ramble transfer special finished. We'll be back after the Crystal Palace game and hopefully we'll have a few new signings. So please do subscribe, give us feedback, give us a tweet. We're on every platform and enjoy the game against Palace. Up the Arsenal.
This podcast is sponsored by the Tollington Arms on Hornsey Road, a bubbly pub with a Thai kitchen home to thousands of Arsenal fans every season. Open daily from noon.